Hello and welcome back to another episode of the IceMac MMA podcast. I'm Jackson McCarty, joined as always with my buddy Alex Eisman. And before we get into any of the talk about 302, make sure that you're following and subscribing, liking, commenting, whatever you can on YouTube, Apple Plus, or Apple Podcast rather. And then I'm having an issue with our Spotify account, so may or may not Spotify for the time being, but we're still up on the other two. We'll get that figured up. Alex, how was your Memorial Day weekend?
It was great, man. Me and a couple of my buddies from school, every year go to Cape Cod for the weekend. Had a great time. Um, had a great time for 90% of it until the last day when I forgot to put sunscreen on my feet. So if you're watching this and you're seeing me on Zoom at a weird angle, it's because I'm laid up right now, slathered in aloe
He's
because
recovering. He's recovering
because
from
my
Memorial Day
feet
with the
are
boys.
are in uh are in shambles a little bit. But besides that, great time. Good for you as well, I assume.
Yeah. We made it work. My dad was in town. We had a couple of complications with the things we were going to go do, but made it work. You know who else had a really good Memorial Day weekend, Alex?
Oh,
Conor
really good might be an understatement.
Conor McGregor was about to make a movie in the middle of the club. Let me just say that. If you guys haven't seen the video, which I am hard pressed to imagine very many MMA fans have not caught that at this point, but Conor was out partying, probably drinking. I mean, like, I don't think he had a drink in his hand, but like, you get in that kind of situation, it's got to be hard not to have some booze in you.
Whether it's a whiskey, whether it's a glass of whiskey or an 8 ball, he was on something.
He
I
was
know that.
feeling himself.
Yeah,
And what are we, 5 weeks out?
yeah, we're
So,
close.
Alex, is that a big deal to you?
It's the optics aren't great. I think we can both agree on that, right?
Yeah. Well, I just
I mean,
remember he was on live or a stream or whatever he was doing, and he was talking about like how he's clean and he's taking it for real. And then he was like pouring out the new proper 12, and he looked like he was about to lose a sobriety chip, just watching it get poured into the glass. And now this comes out. It's very, I've always kind of thought Conor, and I've said it as much on this podcast, I think Conor is a snake oil salesman. I think he believes he is something and he is something totally different. Um, but I don't know. It's very disrespectful, which is, kind of what he's going for. Because when has he ever been respectful really to much of anybody? But um, I don't know. Mike has been waiting for this fight for a real long time, and to know that he's probably, you know, grinding like somebody in the military right now, and Connor's out there just doing what Connor does is kind of a slap in the face of the sport to me, because this is supposed to be a big money fight, and it doesn't always look like Connor's brain is anywhere near the fight game.
yeah, well, I mean, it's not to say that it doesn't work. I mean, you look at John Jones,
Yeah,
who was act like confirmed doing cocaine all the time, was doing it nights before fights,
yeah,
and like he somehow still won. I mean, Connor's definitely likes to get in your head a little bit before that might just be a thing. Um, I don't know the difference between him and John Jones is, John Jones at least was like fighting on a regular basis. Connor
right.
hasn't fought in 3 years, is coming off a pretty debilitating injury. Like,
Well, and
I don't think it's smart.
all the cocaine Jones stories were like when he was like 28.
Yeah.
He was a young, in his prime, very clearly leaps and bounds more talented than the dudes he was going to be in the octagon with, because we've never seen anybody that pure talented. Connor is older. Like you said, he's not been in the cage. He's been injured. He's coming off of a loss, or he's
Two
coming off back
losses.
to back. Yeah, I say back to back losses. So like there should not be this sense of confidence and the sense of I'm Conor McGregor when his last handful of performances, which have been a ways away, have been anything but peak Conor.
Yes. And he like we've been saying this for a while. Like it feels like he's just not invested in fighting anymore, just as a whole. And so I think that just is just playing into kind of how he feels about just being a fighter in general. Like he's already insanely rich. Like he has everything he could want. He's won championships. The legacy's there. Everything is there for him. Like he doesn't have to keep doing this. Um, so I mean, it's hard for me to like. It's hard for me to like kind of shit on him for this.
Yeah.
Like it's obviously not a good look, but I mean, Michael Chandler is at Conor McGregor's will here.
Yeah, a thousand
Like
percent.
Conor's 100% calling the shots. So if he
Well, yeah, because
wants to
this
do
fight would have
that,
happened a year ago had he not been.
yeah, yeah. If he wants to do that stuff, more power to him. Like, I mean, shouldn't say more power to him.
Yeah.
It's his choice. I'm not gonna encourage that.
Yeah.
It's his choice if he wants to do that or not. Um, but if because he says a lot of things, he says he's still trying to be a champion again, still going for legacy. If that's really the case, that's not what he should be doing.
No, well, and like you said, it seemed like his heart's been out of it for a long time, which more, that's perfectly fine. You've earned all the riches in the world from this sport that it could possibly give you. That said, don't get in the cage. Don't waste other fighters' time. Don't cause all of these issues. If you actually want to fight, commit to it because it's exhausting. Like as a fan, to be like, okay, we've only got 5 weeks left till we see him fight, and I don't even know that he's going to be sober when he's in the cage. And it's like that's just why would I want to spend money on that card? Why would I want to, even pay attention to that if I think that he is totally phoning it in?
Yeah. I I don't know. I If he makes it in the cage, I still think it would be a miracle.
Yeah, I do too. Like, and even this close out, like I told you, until we're actually Bruce Buffer is in there saying names and telling us that we're in the main event, this fight is not official to me because it's Connor, man. That's just the way he operates. But we can move on beyond that. Let's get into these recaps. We only had two from the previous card, and that was 2 weeks ago now. But we'll start off with Lerone, who looked big time.
Awesome.
Yeah,
He beat the crap out of Barboza, dude. I can't believe they didn't like he wasn't able to get the finish. I thought it probably should have been called
a
once
couple
or
times.
twice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, I mean that's exactly what you want to see out of Murphy. A guy who's undefeated, just broke into or was close to the rankings. Um, and just giving another contender at that division, which there's new life now with Ilya's champ. I
Well,
thought it was
yeah,
great.
yeah, and Edson's like a true litmus test for that weight class. So it's big time to see somebody pass with flying colors like that. Like that is a true sign of great things to come. Hopefully, it doesn't kind of nosedive like it did with Bryce, going up against Ilya and the mess that became. But yeah, this is so long as he stays relatively strategic with moving up the numbers and not jumping too far forward. Lerone could be a legit guy within the next 3 fights, probably.
Yeah, and didn't have to use any wrestling, which we didn't expect.
No.
But
Which I mean, he was
striking
still
with
like 4 for 6
Barboza
on
is those.
takedowns, which is
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah. Like, or I mean, he didn't have to. I shouldn't say he didn't have to use the wrestling. He didn't have to like lean
Commit
on
to
his
it.
wrestling.
Yeah.
Yes,
He didn't have to
yes,
Giles Almeida it
yeah.
or Curtis
Like
Blades it, I guess.
that. It was just for style points
Yeah.
because he was piecing them up on the feet. So
Yeah. 1,000%. And then I did not have Angela Hill by submission on my bingo card.
yeah, me neither. That one was a little surprising. Um, but it's kind of what we talked about, like Angela Hill's gonna be tough for anyone to take out at this. Like any woman who fights Angela Hill is going to be in for a battle, and that's like she just showed it again. She showed why like she's in the UFC, why she's still in the UFC.
Right.
You know?
Well, yeah, and Luana, like I wouldn't say it was necessarily a bad fight for her. It wasn't an impressive one. And against somebody like Angela Hill, you have to be able to make that statement. Luana just wasn't able to make that statement.
Yeah, but not much more. Not much more on that. Luana also like there were some signs. There were
Yeah.
some signs with her beforehand. or not immediately beforehand, but just in her previous fights, where it was like, how good is she really? And Angela Hill is the fraud checker of the strawweight division. So
That she is. Now we probably won't have Luana on our predictions and recaps for the foreseeable future until she
anytime soon, yeah.
starts to bump that back the right
Work back up,
direction.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right, so we've got what, 6 fights that we're going to talk about for this next card, 302.
Mm-hmm.
We're starting off with it's the featured pre, right?
Yes.
Roman Kopylov, Cesar Almeida. This is a bit of a devil you know versus devil you don't for me. Obviously, both are strikers, heavily strikers. You shouldn't see any ground and pound here, any takedown attempts, anything like that. Um, and to be perfectly honest, I feel a lot better about Roman's trajectory now than I did right whenever he got to the UFC. I think he's done a really good job of figuring it out. And since I really just don't know that much about Almeida, I'm gonna go with the devil I do know. I'm gonna say Roman by decision because I don't. Almeida hasn't been put out. He hasn't had enough fights to really say how great his chin is. Um, but he hasn't been put out yet. I think Roman's going to have the confidence going in there, a little bit more comfortability. I think he probably pushes it to decision.
Yeah, I'm with you on this one. It's hard. It's hard to go with a guy who only has 5 professional fights unless he is like a total freak.
Yeah,
I don't think Almeida is that guy. Um, Roman, he took a loss in his last fight, but against a wrestler, and so I'm not too. Yeah, like you said, I'm not super worried about him in the striking battle. He's shown that he can beat good guys with his striking. He's got a lot of power. Um, just to make things a little interesting, I'll say by KO, but like it's not going to shock me if he goes to decision. I mean, yeah,
yeah. I think there's one of two options, and it's this fight ends by decision or it's by KO. I don't think we're
yeah,
having to worry about a sub attempt here.
yeah.
Um, and yeah, like I said, it's just because I don't really have the data I need to understand if Almeida's jaw is good or if it's just been a situation of like he hadn't had to deal with that much. Like we have a contender series fight and we have one UFC fight, and that's about all we get.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just and it hadn't been enough to really convince me one way or the other in either fight that this guy is a legit real deal. So yeah, just roll with Roman and assume that the devil you know is better than the devil you don't.
Yep. Yeah. But on to the main card. One of our boys, Randy Brown,
Rude boy main card enjoyers right here.
rude boy, main card, fighting. Ooh, tough name. Uh, Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos. That's gonna be my stab at it.
I was gonna say Elizu Zaleski dos Santos. Let's just call him Eli for the sake of it.
Eli.
Just
John Anik, please help us.
please save us, John Anik. If you can
Prayer
hear it,
circle. John
please
Anik.
save us, John Anik. Um, I mean, not a similar boat because like we just love Rude Boy around here. Eli has had two pretty close fights since he's been back moving around in the company. I just like the fact that Rude Boy, and it's pretty much the same thing I say every time we talk about Rude Boy when he's fighting. The striking mixed with the takedowns, mixed with the grappling ability, just kind of hard to face a guy like that whenever he is proficient at both, kind of like a Brendan Allen. Um,
Mm,
and he is very much proficient at both of those. He's going to find more success on the mat being able to mix those in than Nurmagomedov did, in my opinion, because yeah, Abubakar, right? Was how you
yeah,
pronounce that?
yeah.
He just kind of leaned on the I should just be able to grab a hold of him, and it didn't really work.
Hmm.
Rude Boy will actually have a tactic there, be able to mix it in. I don't want to say a comfortable win, but I do think this is going to be a good statement and a good moment for Rude Boy as he continues to kind of climb up the ranks.
Yeah, and like we always talk about, the measurables for Rude Boy are also super. Like he'll be favored in height, in reach, almost every time he steps in there. And unless he's going up against one of the more talented guys in the weight class, like that's gonna give people who aren't as talented just problems, inherent problems. Like,
He's like a polished Jalen Turner
yeah,
in
it's a
terms
good
of
way to
like
put it.
this. in terms of like the size and the kind of
Yeah,
that natural advantage.
yeah, for sure. So I knew we would both be on the Randy Brown train,
Ru-
obviously.
You put
So
Rude Boy on the main card, I pick him. That's how this
yeah,
goes.
yeah, yeah,
Well, especially facing guys like Eli.
yeah.
We move on to this next one of your guys. Had a bit of a tough outing his last go around, but Jailton Almeida's back taking on Alexander Romanov. Um, what's your confidence level at going into this one after that Blades fight?
Extremely confident. I remember watching Volkov toss around Romanov like a rag doll,
Yeah,
and and that's what Almeida was doing to Curtis Blades.
right.
He was tossing him around like a rag doll that entire first round. This feels like a prime bounce back matchup for Almeida. I think he'll probably get a sub here. I think he'll get a finish in this fight. Romanov is a fish out of water in the wrestling
Which is weird
category.
because doesn't he have like an inordinate amount of submissions?
Does he? I don't even know. But I
Hold on,
would
I'm
be
pulling.
stunned.
Nine
Stunned if
subs.
any 9 subs for Romanov.
Yes. 17 wins, 9 by submission.
All
Explain to
those
me
had to be
how
pre
that
UFC,
happened.
right?
Um, let's see. He got a key lock sub on Chase Sherman.
Oh, okay.
He got a technical submission forearm choke on Rogerio de Lima.
Okay.
Then he got a arm triangle on Roque Martin, and that's the
So
extent
just
of it. And
just the
and two of
other
those were 2020.
just the other heavyweight cans.
Right.
Got it.
Yeah, it's pretty much like getting style points. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not been anything special.
So I expect Almeida to get a finish here, get a sub.
I
Uh
do too.
he's starting to get the crotch sniffer label, so it might be good for him to finish a fight
Yeah,
also. So
I'm with you there. This is the get right game through and through. It's a hey man, you were doing good. You got starched by Curtis Blades of all people. Let's just get you back on the right train, get you moving right, put you back in here against a dude we know you can beat, give you some publicity on where you are on the card. It all lines out right. I'm actually going to take Almeida by TKO. Get a little specific here. I think he holds him
ground
down and
pound.
just drives through him. But I do think you're right in that ballpark with the finish, just slightly different method.
Mm-hmm. God, big mouth back at
Uh,
middleweight.
yes.
At
Weird.
middleweight.
His career, when we look back on it, whenever he's finally done, is going to be such a hard one to explain to people that didn't watch it.
Yeah. Like he's electric, but he's got 11 losses, so you look at him and you're like, "Oh, well, he must have sucked."
Right.
No.
Well, and like you look at him bouncing around weight classes and you look at like taking all these short notice fights and just kind of being generally, he just has such a strange trajectory that doesn't
Yeah.
tell the whole story at all.
Yeah. But here we are. We're back in middleweight fighting old J Chuck. I think this is a win for him,
Yeah,
for
I
Kevin.
I'm gonna go loudmouth by sub here. I think the middleweight food chain, as it were, is pretty well established, and I think that Kevin Holland is a healthy amount higher than Olajaychuk is within that food chain. Obviously, anything can happen, but it's like, come on, this should be Kevin Holland's fight to win, lose, and everything in between.
Yeah. He's when you look at the guys that Olajaychuk has fought too recently and has kind of had a hard time with, um, you're like, okay, Kevin Holland's just easy money. Like,
Yeah, which
and I
I
know
mean, I
he's
can't
and I
imagine
know Olajaychuk's gonna win now because I said that, but like,
but I can't imagine Kevin's like any worse than like a 300 favorite.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like
yeah, I
it's got to
should
be
check the
pretty
lines.
lopsided.
I should check the lines, but
Yeah.
I'll do
Well,
that
while you
later.
do that, I'll set up this next one because now we're actually getting
Okay.
into like all these fights that we've had so far are pretty much glorified mentions, which sucks, as a UFC or a pay-per-view card. But these top two are where the conversations actually start. Sean Strickland going up against our boy Paulo Costa. Um, and as much as I hate it, I have to go against Paulo because I think this is going to be a situation where uh, Paulo goes pretty full bore early on in the fight. We know his gas tank's improving, but I still wouldn't define it as good. because he does still look very heavy once you get into that second, third round. I think Strickland survives the first, takes over the second and third, and just kind of pins him down to a decision win here.
I'm going with Paulo. Come on. Also, Kevin Holland. Kevin Holland was minus 260, by the way. So he was like
Mm,
kind of close, but like
yeah,
not that close.
I wasn't that far off, but yeah,
Um, but yeah, I like the way Paulo looked against Whitaker. Like I know he lost. I thought that was a way he looked way better in that fight than he did against Rockhold. And
yes.
that gave me a lot of confidence. Strickland just feels like a fluky, like he just got an insane performance one time against Izzy. Like you look at the rest of his career and it's like he really hasn't been anything special to me.
And I even agree with that. And I loved how Paulo looked in that Rob fight. But it's a situation of Strickland is just so weird to face. And Paulo has not proven himself as a strategist by any means. So if he just comes out here, gasses himself out, and then here we go. A guy like Strickland, with how weird his body angles are, and how genuinely good he is at getting out of the way of strikes, and like that's just such a bad issue to have to do with a guy who has had gas tank issues, who is just so much heavier because of how much muscle he carries. Like it's just a bad formula. It's not at all what I'm hoping for, but I do think that Strickland is probably he's going to be so much better at making Paolo uncomfortable. And when Paolo's uncomfortable, I don't really trust him.
Yes, but Strickland isn't going to knock him out either.
Right, which is why I think it's going to be pretty much dink and dunk the way home to the
Yeah.
scorecards.
Yeah. And like to me it's like Paulo lands a clean shot. It's good night,
Right. I mean,
you know?
we've seen that like with Alex. Alex
Yeah.
completely turned the lights out on Sean.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
Paulo is not Alex Pereira, but like he's got a lot of power in his hands. Obviously, I mean, dude is just built like a brick wall. Like,
Well, and dude was bringing in some scary knockouts before the first Izzy fight. Like he
yeah,
has that. It's
yeah,
just been a really bumpy ride since then.
it has, but it's also been just on him being kind of like fooling around a little bit and not taking things seriously, showing up 15 pounds over against Vittori and like stuff like that. But it seems like he has improved since the Rockhold fight, which is encouraging for sure.
Yeah. I thought, yeah, 1,000%. And if I wish I could have picked Paolo here, but my gut's telling me Sean, just because, like I said, that strategic portion of it just kind of gives me some pause with Paolo.
Hmm.
But all right, now we're gonna get to the main event, which I know is gonna make you very sad, and I know where you're picking, and I know you don't want to pick it, and I know, but I presume you're not just gonna throw a pick away here. Islam Makhachev versus Dustin Poirier. Do you want to rip the Band-Aid off, or do you want me to?
I can do it. As much as it hurts me to pick against Dustin, I just I don't see any way he wins that fight. I don't see any way he wins that fight, and I especially don't see any way he wins that fight if he tries to jump Gilly every time he has a chance.
If he tries to jump Gilly on Islam might legit flip him upside down and just drive his head into the mat.
Like my confidence is extremely low in Dustin.
Dude, my favorite part of the last couple of weeks though has been watching Dustin's like Twitter fan base do this. What is it? He's like 7-0 in June or something, and I don't remember what all it was, but there was a bunch of like Dustin can't lose stats that were coming out, and I'm like, let's not do that, please, because I don't want to see anybody get too emotionally damaged from this fight. I would rather just see people prepare for what's about to happen because Islam is Islam, Dustin is Dustin, and that's really all
Oh,
you.
that trust me, that's what I'm doing. I'm going in with every expectation, not even considering that Poirier could win. I
Yeah,
can only be surprised, won't be let down. Islam is Islam, like you said. He's he's amazing.
yeah,
He's just an amazing fighter. And like you see Habib's gonna be in his corner
good,
again. Yeah.
good, dude. This fight legit might be over before we hit the second round.
Yeah.
Just be like with Habib in that corner as well. Like that's tough.
Yeah. I saw that and I was like, yeah, dude, this is not gonna last long, unfortunately. If
No,
Charles can't do it, there's no shot Dustin can.
no. Even with his little sneak attack gillies, like
Yeah.
it ain't worked yet, and you don't do that against a guy like Islam.
Yeah.
But all right,
Yeah.
until or whenever these fights wrap up this weekend and we get to talk about the results, where can they find them?
You can find us on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, possibly Spotify. Hopefully. Fingers
TBA.
crossed.
Yep.
We'll see. But but yeah, regardless of Dustin getting smoked and possibly sent into retirement, I'm excited for this weekend. Got another it's solid pay-per-view. It's gonna be fun just watching the fights. Um and yeah, we'll see what happens.
Yes, sir. Till next time.
See you next week.